Do you feel kind of stuck in your personal development recently? Perhaps you find yourself in the same conflicts over and over again. You have the same triggers and arguments with a colleague. Ask yourself why you always attract these types of people in your dating life, or have the same doubts, fears, or negative feelings. Well, one typical reason that we don't get to the root cause of a problem and therefore find these nerve-wracking situations repeating is that we avoid difficult emotions. We've learned to look away and numb ourselves to escape the overwhelm. This process isn't always a deliberate one, but has become so automated that we aren't even aware of it. So here are 5 ways in which we often avoid negative emotions that you may want to become aware of. Hey there, I'm happy to have you here for today's video. I'm Eva, psychologist and head of content at FlowLab. FlowLab is an AI-powered mental fitness app that helps you increase well-being and productive flow states with personalized guided meditations. You can save your 50% off the yearly subscription. All information is in the description below. If you like our content and want to support us, it would mean a lot if you subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. We all push away negative emotions sometimes. And yes, in some situations, when we need to function, for example, this can be adaptive. But if we do that regularly because we simply can't bear these negative emotions, we may also block out their underlying causes and, rather than trying to solve the problem, become avoidance masters. Conflicts may repeat or new conflicts may arise. Say you always feel offended by a silly joke your colleague makes about you. At first, you tolerate it, perhaps giggle in embarrassment because you also don't want to come across as a bad sport. But over time, you feel more and more hurt and angry. On the other hand, you want to keep the harmony within the team and therefore push these emotions away. Chances are your anger doesn't mysteriously disappear, but becomes stronger. Perhaps you get triggered more easily because you hear an offense in any comment. You don't want to go to work anymore, or maybe even notice that your anger finds another valve, maybe expressing itself as headaches or stomach aches. Avoiding emotions can feel like a relief in the moment. We don't have to face the overwhelming feeling or the problem. And this is not only true for anger, but of course for other emotions like boredom, anxiety, sadness, loneliness, you name it too. Yes, in some cases, blocking them out can be the better choice. But if you feel stuck, as if you're not making any progress, as if the same negative things keep recurring and you don't know why, you may want to look at it a bit closer and ask yourself whether you're suppressing something. I know these tendencies from myself too. So I reflected on the top 5 ways people avoid their emotions, most probably without being aware of it. Let me know if you can relate to any of these strategies in the comments below, or which other emotional avoidance behaviors you know from yourself. The global warming rate has doubled over the past 40 years, and the 9 years from 2013 to 2021 rank among the 10 warmest years on record.
Just stay positive.
I love people who can see the positive side of things, who appreciate the small things in life and remain optimistic no matter the challenge. But there's a difference between being optimistic and being toxically positive. When people aren't able to bear up against the pain, frantically trying to only see the positive becomes an emotional avoidance strategy too. They block out the negative as if it doesn't exist. When speaking of positive psychology, however, psychologists don't mean that we always have to be happy and positive. It's about acknowledging the negative and growing from it, about using your strengths to overcome hurdles and endure challenging phases. It may be a tough pill to swallow, but if you think about it, are you in denial and shut your eyes to any problems or negative emotions? Or do you use positivity to accept these emotions as an indispensable part of life and ideally grow from them? Rather than just hoping for the best, try to reflect on your strengths and how you can use them to deal with certain problems. Look for role models and not only remind yourself that they managed to succeed, but also how they succeeded, the long hauls they endured and the blood, sweat and tears they had to invest. Visualize not only your goals, but also the obstacles you may encounter along the way and how you can overcome them. We also produced a flow session to train exactly that, namely Whoop in the training area of Drive.
There was a trend toward a difference between genotype A1A1 and genotype A1A2 in degree of HDRS increase. What the?
Didn't you see a meme about reading complicated texts yesterday? What was it again? Let's be real. How often do you check your phone while working? And could it be that you're stressed about a difficult task or maybe bored and feel the urge to procrastinate? Most of us have their phone within reach, and we let ourselves get carried away in a doom scroll that is hard to justify as just quickly checking the messages. With never-ending feeds and endless entertainment options, we can delve into any other reality in no time. Of course, it's also the means of choice for other uncomfortable emotions. We may sympathize with characters in a Netflix series to numb loneliness or scroll on TikTok to escape boredom. I only noticed how strong the urge to grab my phone was when I decided to quit social media and Netflix during my 1-week dopamine fast. I'll put the link to the video in the info box if you haven't watched it yet. It's not about banning social media for good or forbidding yourself to enjoy an episode of your series in the evening. It's about a healthy balance. And if the time in front of the screen becomes a necessary element of your daily life because you struggle to cope with whatever you're feeling otherwise, you may want to question this avoidance strategy and think about other, more sustainable coping strategies. Perhaps becoming aware of what is going on inside you in the first place and practicing mindfulness, our flow session Rock Steady that you'll find in the training area of ease, of the Flow Lab app can support you here if you like. Or instead of surfing the internet, you can learn to surf the urge. Rather than impulsively reacting to the emotion by, in this case, escaping into a virtual world, you practice to explore it mindfully and observe how the urge fades away at some point by itself. You'll see that this intense feeling, this intense urge gets weaker again, so you'll have the time to reflect on its origin in peace.
And what do we do when we're feeling sad? Add to cart. Wait, what? Initiate checkout. Oh my god, no, don't do this. Click here to purchase. No, why are you doing this? I'm just so sad.
Hands up who also uses consumption to compensate for a bad mood. You're certainly not alone. No matter if it's new clothes, devices, decoration for your apartment, or also food, which is something I used in the past as an emotional avoidance or coping strategy. Did you also have to discuss any problem topic at the dinner table when you were younger? A bad grade, the spot on the couch, or the house party you stole away for? Many people fall back to emotional eating when dealing with uncomfortable states. If I think about my own experiences and where this habit stems from, one aspect could be these arguments at the dinner table. Food was both comfort and a strategy to buy time to think about an appropriate answer. Over time, this function of providing comfort generalized to other contexts too, so that whenever I felt down, exhausted, bored, or sad, food temporarily helped me to fill the void. Perhaps you can also identify past situations that reinforced this avoidance strategy, no matter what kind of consumption you fall back to. Let me emphasize that for any of these points, if you have an eating disorder, depression, an anxiety disorder, or other diagnoses, don't hesitate to consult a therapist to receive individual treatment. I'm referring to a subclinical level here. If you notice that your consumption behavior changes with your emotional state, you may ask yourself which function this behavior has. Which emotion are you trying to cope with? Is it sadness, loneliness, boredom? Do you use it to reward yourself after a long, stressful day? Which other behavior could you go after to cope with the emotion without numbing yourself? Perhaps meditation, going out for a walk, or seeking warmth by making yourself a hot water bottle, for example. Gosh, negotiation has never been my thing, but this was really awkward. Why did I have to keep talking and talking? It could have gone like
How much for you?
300,000. And now stay cool. Poker face.
Okay.
Done?
Done deal.
The next one is something that I revealed as an emotional avoidance strategy when I noticed that in myself. It comes across as a sweet, innocent little quirk. And yet it can make us diverge from reality, namely daydreaming. We plunge into a fantasy world where we can construct a reality without any boundaries. We can play out different endings to situations we encountered in the past, daydream about an unrealistic future, or create another reality with elements that have never happened and will never happen. For example, when a conversation didn't turn out the way I anticipated, perhaps I made awkward small talk or didn't stand up for myself, I love to avoid the frustration and embarrassment by imagining how this conversation could have happened alternatively, how I reacted quick-wittedly to a sexist comment, acted confidently in a frightening situation, or had the perfect argument in a discussion. And similarly, I also like to daydream about something far from reality. Have you ever daydreamed about winning the lottery while bored at work, for example? Daydreaming can be great sometimes, perhaps to explore certain emotions in a safe setting without the fear of rejection, to spark our creativity, and perhaps to become aware of certain goals and desires. So let me emphasize that the behavior I want to talk about here is different from deliberate daydreaming or mental imagery. It's about the tendency to automatically drift into an illusion whenever there are negative feelings. Take someone who tends to feel anxious in social situations. It may be extremely tempting to escape into a mental world where you have the funniest conversations at a party, muster up the courage to confess your love to your crush, or to finally speak your mind to your boss. And while daydreaming may be great to mentally practice these situations, it's a thin line where it turns into an avoidance strategy. Because these illusions can become so comforting that we prefer to indulge ourselves even further in these fantasies rather than running the risk of abandoning them. We may fear rejection, failure, or negative emotions and therefore avoid them. The thing is, when taking our daydreams to a point where we attribute certain characteristics to a person, this might keep us from building authentic, intimate relationships. So if you have a dreamer's mind, whenever you catch yourself drifting into a fantasy world, you can ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Which need am I trying to satisfy? Does this daydream help me to change my real life for the better, or do I use it to escape my real life? These questions can help you to identify the function of these daydreams and whether you are avoiding difficult emotions. What she said the other day was really over the top.
As in inconsiderate or hurtful?
Nah, I think there was no reason for being so offensive. It didn't make any sense.
But like, what emotion did you feel when she said that?
I was confused.
Confusion is not an emotion.
I felt confused. This final strategy is a tricky one. It seems as if we explored the emotion, yet we don't actually feel it, but rather stay in our head and rationalize it. Analyzing a conflict solely on a mental level, weighing pros and cons or trying to figure out what makes sense, can also make us avoid the actual emotion and facing the feeling of being hurt, feeling guilty, angry, whatever it is. It's hard to identify as an emotional avoidance strategy because there are certainly extremely effective mental tools to cope with difficult emotions. We know cognitive reappraisal from CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, where we try to look at a situation from a different perspective. And they're absolutely necessary in many situations to avoid getting stuck in a difficult emotion, to act less impulsively, to get a healthy distance first, the list goes on. But if we use this only to overshadow the emotion and don't circle back to look at it in peace again, we can miss the chance to change something about the situation. Not always can we change something about a situation. In these cases, reappraising the situation can be very helpful to put it behind. If you can change something though, it may be more beneficial in the long run to face the conflict rather than push away your emotions. Imagine someone treats you badly, but you swallow your anger, perhaps feel somewhat numb or indifferent. You might not feel the anger anymore, but perhaps there will also be less drive to speak up for yourself. Whether rationalizing is the way to go or not is very dependent on the situation and the emotion. But what can help you decide is to ask yourself, are you simply coping right now? Rationalizing the situation so you get a healthy distance to the conflict and look at it with a clear head again? Or are you pushing the emotion away and avoiding the conflict because you don't want to deal with it anymore? If you're brutally honest with yourself, do you know deep down inside you that this is something you shouldn't be pushing away because you've encountered something similar in the past or because it's holding you back? And do you use rationalizing to somehow improve your situation and become active, or does it make you stagnate because you keep ruminating about the problem in your mind rather than actually processing it with all the emotion that comes with it? Please feel free to share which emotional avoidance strategy you know from yourself in the comments below. There are a number of flow sessions in the Flow Lab app where you can mindfully explore what is going on inside you and train a strong, optimistic mindset so you can bounce back from difficult situations and unleash your full potential. I hope you liked this video. If so, I'd appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Bisschen auseinander könnte noch. Ja. Ja, okay, wollen wir trotzdem jetzt aber dann richtig machen?